Everyone, welcome back to Future and AI. And today we're going to specifically talk about voice.
ElevenLabs.
How it affects storytelling.
How those integrations speak to your systems.
How does the complex workflow happen?
The start of a new era of communication and understanding.
You're watching Future and AI in conversation with ElevenLabs.
We actually launched something very interesting today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Future and AI. It's a podcast where we cut through the hype, staying optimistic, but we get straight to how today's smartest tools are transforming tomorrow's businesses. And today we're going to specifically talk about voice. And when I say voice, not just voiceovers or accents, but we're going to talk about many more aspects of it, whether it be synthetic voices, multilingual dubbing, voice cloning as a use case, how it affects storytelling, and a lot of very interesting use cases which you don't think about in terms of accessibility of finance and healthcare and whatnot. My guest today is someone who's shaping this future at a global level. His name is Siddharth, and he's leading strategic efforts at ElevenLabs, heading the India business, and one of the world's most exciting voice AI companies. And the exciting bit for me personally is when I see their journey, and I've been a user of ElevenLabs for a while as someone who creates content. I think it's been invaluable to me. They've gone from being just a startup like 3 years ago to now $3.3 billion in valuation. And they have powered a lot of commercial and use cases internationally. They've powered one of the Lex Friedman's podcasts as well, which was with Prime Minister Modi, and they had dubbed that. And there are many use cases that we're going to talk about around maybe healthcare, creator tools, and dubbing in general for all kinds of use cases, educational as well as entertainment. So if you're a business owner, you're a CEO, you're a content creator, or you're probably building a product, I think if this is what you're wondering, this podcast is for you. Can voice AI actually help us scale content, localize faster, serve customers better at scale, or create new experiences? If that's the question, like you're exploring, and exactly where I am at today, I'm going to be in a position of, learning what are the possibilities here, how to make them happen, right? So let's imagine what's possible, and then let's plan how we can probably act on it, right? So if that's a question that you share and you have the same amount of curiosity as me, you're going to love this. So Siddharth, welcome to our show.
Hey, Nivedan, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here and have this conversation. And, just one minor correction in your intro.
Yeah.
ElevenLabs won't just be one of the most exciting voice AI companies, but I think we're going to be one of the most exciting AI companies, period, globally and in India.
Oh, wonderful. I think your story so far is clearly headed in that direction for sure. So with this, Siddharth, let me start off with this, right? I would love to know a little bit more about you and the journey of ElevenLabs so far. How did you guys go from being just a tiny little startup 3 years ago to a $3.3 billion valued, and you've raised massive funds from the Silicon Valley investors, and you've done all of that being a voice tech leader in just 3 years? How does that happen?
It is quite an unbelievable journey. I joined this company about a year ago, and what I've seen in that 1 year, I think if I sort of think back to my career, it's about 5 to 8 years of momentum compressed, right? It's unbelievable. So, if you look at the founding story, we have Matty and Piotr, who are childhood friends from Poland. And, there's a very interesting quirk in Poland where when you watch movies, these movies tend to be dubbed into Polish, right? You get Hollywood movies and they're dubbed. Sounds normal. But the funny thing is you have one actor voicing over all of the characters in the movie in a pretty static and monotonic way. So it's one person, one voice, sort of stock, almost robotic, voicing over the entire movie. So, they were childhood friends, used to live together, work together, etc. And then, one was at Google, one was at Palantir. And, in one of their weekend hacks, right, they used to come together, hack together projects and, think through ideas. They suddenly had this idea of saying, hey, could we actually build technology now that, this was 2-3 years back, when we started seeing, the first wave of AI technology out there in the market. You started having that consumer moment, with Chat GPT and so forth. So they started thinking and saying, hey, could we do something here? And could we do something around voice, right? Could we perhaps scale and automate dubbing at scale? And fast forward 2 to 3 years, we got tens of millions of users all around the world. We work with about 75% of Fortune 500 in terms of our user base. And as you rightly said, we're valued at billions of dollars. And it's been quite an interesting journey of multiple iterations and reinventing the company almost every 3 to 6 months, believe it or not. But hey, that's AI speed for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have a new, we've unlocked a new magnitude of order of what speed means, and I think yours is a perfect example that captures that. So you started off as a company which had a mission of saying, like, can we solve dubbing?
Yeah.
That's where it started.
Yes.
And you're now much more into all the other aspects around voice. So I would like to talk a little bit more about what are the kinds of things you think ElevenLabs has excelled at beyond dubbing, which is, I think, dubbing and text to speech is what is the most common one, and speech to text as well. These are the ones that the people who use your products know much more of.
Exactly.
And, there's a feature of voice cloning that I've personally used.
Yep.
Right. But I would like you to kind of lay out what is the consequence of a voice AI in the larger scheme of things. What kind of use cases are there that you think most people don't know of and are very exciting?
Sounds good. So let me first talk about what we are sort of doing from a research and product standpoint, and then what that sort of means in terms of, I think, the possibilities, the use case, and what it unlocks, right? So, you're absolutely right, Nivedan. When we started off, we started off trying to think about, hey, how do we solve for dubbing, right? And I think the very first step in that was solving for voice. So we really started off as a hyper-realistic text-to-speech company. Now, the research that we did then with an extremely small and talented set of researchers, that led to building out our foundational models in text-to-speech, which today is probably the most realistic set of models you have in this category, which are multi-language, multi-accent, almost an infinite voice capability across all of these, and you can put that into various applications. So when you have the native capability, what are the applications you can put it onto? You can start building multiple really deep product lines, right? Because you have the core research available to you. So one, for example, is, say, text to speech, right? Which is, say, let's use for voiceovers, like creators, like, or, thought leaders or influencers, like, for example, yourself, right? So that's one line. But the second, I think, a lot of other interesting applications, right? Then you bring that into dubbing, because when you dub somebody, you can actually preserve their actual voice, their emotions, their cadence, and therefore enhance the dubbed experience. You can actually scale up podcast production. But I think maybe a really well-kept secret for us is, a lot of the content creation use cases for us, the biggest use case is to integrate AI audio into video content generation. That's actually our biggest use case. So it's content creators online saying, hey, how do I build video at scale and solve a lot of, let's say, problems, whether they are before or after, let's say, the camera work, right? The second is marketers, right? All kinds of problems. How do I have a brand presence? How do I tell a brand story? How do I have a product story, right? How do I build creative? How do I connect with my consumer, right? So there are a lot of really interesting use cases on that side. And then let's not forget, big media, right? For example, we work with the likes of Star Sports, and what they're doing over there is they're creating fan experiences with, tier one cricketing talent. And they are using AI technology like ours to actually go and make these experiences possible, right? And doable at scale, and create really innovative connects between their audience, the sport, and, the talent, right? So I think these are one set of capabilities we unlock. The next set is when you look at speech to text, right? So you're right. We've got a world-leading set of research over there. Our model is called Scribe. Now, essentially, speech to text are ears, right? So if you can hear somebody well, then a lot of good things start from there. It's the starting point of everything that follows. So, for example, right now we're on a call. Hey, you need to have a great note taker. And if you've got a great note taker, hey, then you get great analysis. And then you can do all kinds of analysis or records and so forth, so on, right? But it starts with accuracy. Or number two, right? You you have content, and you're trying to auto generate, let's say, captions, and you want to diarize it, right? Speaker one, speaker two, speaker three, you can do that. Let's say you're in a business like ours, right, where I have a sales team, and you maybe have a sales team of 5, 10, 100, 500, 1,000 people, and they're on calls all day. And you're trying to kind of make sense at scale, have the intelligence of what your customers are saying, how they're engaged with your business, with your front line, right? You can now do that, right? And it all stems from accuracy, diarization, and a lot of advanced features, which you then bake into these products, right? They all are built on the foundation of this, right? And then we come to the next part of this, right, which I think is the most exciting part, which is really AI agents. Now, we're in a time where I think it's amazing, right? And Nivedan, you probably see this every day, where what you say and think, especially in a conversation like this, you got to be very careful, because in 3 months, it'll be completely outdated or irrelevant, right? And so we're seeing that, right? A year and a half back, people said, hey, agents, this is theory, it could be interesting. What could it be? It was, it was more of imagining things. It was more about a vision. And you started to see rudiments of this, say, a year back. Fast forward to today, you can be at production scale where AI agents with unbelievable consistency, reliability, perfect knowledge across all languages, phenomenal attitude and happiness and great emotion, are talking to your customers at production scale all day, all night, every day, right? And I think that's the next thing that we have actually now unlocked, right? So if you look at it, solving for media content creation workflows across multiple use cases, and then now voice and agentic workflows through proprietary models and building products on that, so that conversational AI is possible across an unbelievable number of use cases, right? From customer support to education to outbound sales teams to training and so forth, so on. So a lot of unbelievable possibilities.
No, wonderful. I think this paints the entire canvas of what's possible. And I think, to me personally, the most exciting bit is obviously the third one. The delta in value that you generate and create and scale is going to be maximum at the AI agent layer. So there is this foundational layer of getting the transcriptions right. What you're saying, can we get that? Or generating voice from text. That's the core capability, which is the research that you excelled at, right?
Yes.
And then there is this agents bit where I want to understand if, and we're going to probably, we've got a few, I requested you for a few, case studies and demos. So we're going to get into that. So maybe we'll click on that later.
Yep.
But I would love to, understand when you say that we've got today agents which are perfectly consistent and reliable and, with knowledge access that is very high quality. All of that, if that is happening today, I would like to know which companies are doing it at scale and how are they doing it? Because in my experience, it's been a tough beast to tame.
Yes.
Right.
That's
so
true.
Voice capabilities is one, and getting agents to behave is another. Right?
Yes, that's true.
So let's talk about it. And one of the use cases that you had mentioned earlier, which stems from, let's say, the sales teams, let's say, having so many calls day in, day out, customer support teams, so many calls. We're talking about millions and millions, probably billions of calls every day in, day out, that you can derive intelligence from, that you can derive insights from, that can inform literally your entire company's not just product roadmap, but overall strategy. And you could probably pivot basis and intelligence like this.
100%. And the only way to do it before was sampling, right? Then you sort of had the next wave of some level of accuracy, right? And now you can do it with phenomenal precision. You're absolutely right.
I personally find that super exciting. So I see all of these unambiguously very valuable. The only thing that I would love to double click on as we proceed ahead in the conversation is the part where you get them to behave, and how much of that is really in the hands of a core voice AI company like yours.
Sure.
Right? Because that largely is the agentic world is dependent so much more on LLMs and how they behave.
Yeah.
And and what is their agentic capability versus yours, which is the core voice AI. So is that a fair question to ask?
You're 100% right, Nivedan. And I think this is a very important question to ask, right? So that I think, if you sort of look at your audience, and your audience will have all types of personas, right? You're going to have decision makers at companies, you're going to have AI practitioners, you're going to have startup founders, so forth, so on. So I think understanding what it takes and how to actually operationalize this in skills, I think it's a very pertinent question. So to the first thing that you said, right, you're absolutely right. Today, it's not a vending machine, right, where you put in, let's say, a 10 rupee note and then an agent comes out. It's absolutely not that, right? There is a fair amount of work which goes into configuring an agent to give you enterprise level outcomes. Now, that being said, I think there are two things which are really, really useful to keep in mind. We couldn't do this 6 to 9 months ago.
Yeah.
We could not do any of this 6 to 9 months ago. The amount of parallel technology streams, from LLM capabilities to them working super fast with light models, with AI technology, with advances in conversation orchestration and stitching these whole things together. I think a lot of pieces of fundamental research had to happen in parallel along with the overall AI revolution for us to be able to do this, right? So if you think of the graph where 9 months ago you couldn't do this, you just couldn't do this. 6 months ago, you're talking about maybe top 500 consumer tech companies, top 10, top 50, top 100, top 500, saying, let me try this. And then now companies sort of doing this at 30, 40% scale, right? When it comes to their entire voice-based consumer contacts and operations. That is an unbelievable graph. Those are things which used to take 3, 5, 7, 10 years before. So I think the graph of this is what is amazing, right? And you're right. The path to that next 10, 20, 30% incremental, it's not always a straight line, right? Like you have like three things sort of coming together. First, fundamental research advances, of course.
Yes.
Number two, which is very, very important, right? AI skilling, practitioner knowledge. Hey, we all know that LLMs are not always truthful. We all know that you have to ask, they're temperamental and you have to coax the right behavior out of them, right? So that's the second set of things, right? So I think that. And then the third part is just think of the capability set that is now being unlocked within all categories of AI, right? In terms of the data interfaces, in terms of the modality and the context which you can provide to it, and in terms of the actionables and how those integrations speak to your systems, right? I think all of these things, if you look at it, have had unbelievable advances over the last 3 to 4 months. It's happening every day, right? So those are things which I would sort of say. So if you look at it, right, you and I today, we could launch a simple AI agent in 5 minutes on this call. So it's as easy as that. We could probably get to an enterprise POC, right? For an internal demo, some limited user testing. Hey, a month, 6 weeks. And we could get to something which is really defendably enterprise grade and say 2.5 months, 3 months at the outer end, right? Yeah. We could do that. And we could put that
pressing like anything.
Yes, 10, 30, 40%. And again, think about that. That's 3 months of implementation time in industry that's in 9 months old, right? So, a lot of these things are going to squash, right? Because every single one of these pillars, they're getting better, they're getting tighter. And your second agent, you don't go through the same knowledge graph. And the third agent, it's easier, it's faster, right? Those reps, they count into the next and the next deployment, right? So I think that's the way to think about it. So yes, it's not trivial, but you're not but you're learning how to orchestrate and connect the things rather than build an agent. You're learning to deploy an agent.
Yeah.
And the graph, if you get in now, you were asking me, and I'm happy to share a bunch of customer case studies after this, but you were asking me who is building this. I would put it to the question is, I'm wondering who is not trying to build this, to be very honest. The question for me is, are they building us with ElevenLabs or not? But the real question is, who is not building this? Everyone you talk to who has some significant customer exposure, where that's a really motivating and a significant part of their business metrics, is building this today.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Voice is so fundamental to how humans interact that if you can get that bit at a certain precision and at a certain scale, you transform things in a big way.
Especially
yeah. So, and that's where I was about to ask you exactly about that. I remember you mentioning earlier that India is the largest or one of the largest global markets for voice AI, and for you guys, it's such an important focus. And I was a little surprised. I said, I mean, how is that the biggest? So help me make sense of it. Why is India like a center point for voice AI?
See, this right, if you think about it, it sort of has two things coming together. Okay. Which, once I tell you, you will not be surprised at all, right?
Mhm.
The first part is, I think, just how we are as a country, right? Languages, dialects, and voice, right? So let's say you step back from AI and you sort of look at a whole bunch of other categories, right? The number of people who are, what's sort of the phone call rate in the market, right? How many people are actually interacting with their phones via voice messages, voice commands, right?
Mm.
The previous iterations of voice-based assistants, hardware and so forth, so on. Podcasting, it's sort of growth, right? So I think there's a lot of language meets sort of consumer behavior in terms of voice preference, meets a lot of existing technology adoption already on one side, right? So I think that's one. The number two is really, if you look at technology today in India, I think there are two things we know to be true, right? Every company, if they get some traction in India, it becomes the number one and number two consumer or user market, right? It was there the previous company I was at, in almost every product category, a company called Google, right? You see that from Meta. You're already seeing similar declarations from OpenAI, Microsoft, so forth, so on. The second is, India has and will have the largest engineering skilled base in the world, right? And we will be adding more engineers than anybody else if you sort of look at the next 3-5 years, right?
Yeah.
And what is amazing is now at the student level in India already, we are seeing a sharp focus on AI already penetrating. You go to hackathons. I was at this hackathon about 2-3 weeks back with Google. It was essentially this agentic AI day, and they were essentially trying to put together the largest global agent AI hackathon in the world, right? And when you look at it, everywhere you turn, you've got people who are studying, and they are already hacking their way into AI projects. It's literally fun for them, So I think you take this, right, like the talent density, the talent base, the fact that we already have the precedence of being really a super strong consumer adoption market for a lot of technologies with our unbelievable internet penetration and device penetration. And then on the other side, you think about the fact that just for cultural reasons, there's been a strong preference for voice and interaction, right? Both ways. You put this together, you've got a perfect recipe. And a lot of our growth, to be honest, it just was organic for ElevenLabs. It was just, people discovered it. And even before we said, hey, let's invest on this, before I joined the company, it just naturally started taking off because it was a problem that had found a solution.
Yeah, no, I think makes sense. I think as a we're quite a diverse country in every way. We don't do that. The amount of heterogeneity that we have, in a way, creates an interesting kind of challenge for all AI companies, whether they be in the text space or in the voice space, especially anything around language, if not around the other visual creative use cases.
Yep.
I see that being very interesting. I can imagine the first use cases, and tell me if that's right or wrong, is that we've got a lot of all the companies who have customer support. They need to be able to offer it in so many languages, which was simply too hard to do before.
There you go.
So customer support is that. I believe a lot of, what is the word? Financial inclusion. That is what I was looking for. So financial inclusion has to be on the back of language diversity. Otherwise, there is no inclusion.
And if you look at that, a lot of that headroom is now really beyond tier 1 cities as well, right? Forget metros. Now it's going to tier 2, tier 3, etc. Right? And what is the best way to go and take, I think, a lot of, like, if you look at our unbelievable fintech industry, which is now $600 million, and then you sort of take that and then you say, hey, now how are we sort of going to map that into the aspirations and the opportunity for the next set of 100, 200, 300 million users? You're absolutely right? That's where it's sort of coming together.
Yeah, so I think I see definitely that why India is a wonderful playground for you to expand into.
Yes.
We our mode of interaction with tech, we kind of skipped a few hoops that the West didn't have. Like they took up the large computers and these large mobile phones, and then they incrementally moved to the smarter ones over time, and then laptops and this and that. And India jumped straight from having a register at best and probably not being able to read and write for a lot of the interior parts of the country to straight away using mobile phones with voice as the center of it.
There you go. Exactly.
I think that skip has made voice much more integral to our consumer behavior and the expectations we have with the tech that we interact with. So I see that voice opportunity is definitely clear, and why you would focus so much on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the point also there, which is really interesting, is see, end of the day, when you're a business and you're a business at scale, any kind of business, right? And that scale could be thousands, it could be millions, it could be 10 million, it could be 100 million, maybe it's a billion, right? For some lucky company. But whatever it is, you are thinking about how do I hear from every single one of these customers? How do I communicate to them well and consistently? How do I resolve their issues? And how do I keep them posted on, how to engage, work with me? How can I bring them new value? These are your problems, right? And the problem is with scale, you just can't do it as well, right? Because, when you're starting out any business and you got 1, 3, 5, 10, 15 customers, okay, you give it your all as a founder, as a business owner, you are able to have that personal touch. But how do you do this in a scale where not just do they hear you, but they understand you, which is a problem. And they understand you on their own terms. And they do it with the immediacy and urgency that they want. Like the most frustrating thing is, you try to reach out as a consumer to a business, and then 3 days later, you get in touch, you can't understand them, and the problem takes some cycles, and it's that whole wheel.
Yeah.
Right? It's just frustrating, and we've all been on the other end of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so now there's fundamentally new technology which says, hey, for a lot of things, not everything, let's be clear, but for a lot of things, let's solve this now, here and now.
I love that. Perfect. So this, I think we can jump into the next segment that I'm most excited for. I think it's important for people to see this in action, to be able to imagine and understand the power of voice here. So I would love for you have some, things planned out. If you could walk us through one by one, and we can jump straight in, and I'll be the curious representative for my audience and for people who are in a position to make a decision around how they integrate voice into there.
Sounds good. So I have a series of demos for you. So I'm going to show them to you one by one.
Sure.
Okay. So you can check this out, right? Let me share my screen. Give me a second. At the heart of it, right, I think the first thing to sort of experience and understand is just text to speech. So over here, what you see is, this is the ElevenLabs interface. This is the creative platform. And what you will see over here is we have a place where you can paste content, in any language. Today, with our latest V3 model, we support about 12 Indian languages. It's the most realistic voice model on the planet. And then you have an infinite voice platform, right? And I'll show you how this works later. But what you can do is you can paste the content, and then after that, you can literally click generate speech, and then we give you speech options. So let's hear this first output, which is in Hindi, which is sort of self-referential, where the model is talking about itself in Hindi. All right, there you go.
यार रुक, बस एक सेकंड दो, क्योंकि ये जो वॉइस मॉडल है ना, इसने सांस भरी। उफ, फिर से सोमवार। जैसे इसके पास कैलेंडर भी है और एटीट्यूड भी। मैं तो बिल्कुल तैयार नहीं थी। फिर इसने एक हल्की सी धुन सी गुनगुनाई, ना 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 ना। कोई शब्द नहीं, बस वाइब कर रही थी, जैसे मेरा इंतजार करते हुए टाइम पास कर रही हो। और फिर सुनो जरा, इसने फुसफुसाया, सुन रही हो? और मैंने सोचा अब तो जरूर सुन रही हूँ।
Wow, this feels like an audio I heard from a clip from Bollywood movie.
Yeah. In this, right, like if you look at what you can do in V3, You can sing, you can pause, you can whisper, you can laugh, you can breathe, you can get angry, you can slow down, you can do all of these things. You can do this across, 70 plus languages, and you can do this across infinite voices. Now, speaking of infinite voices, let's actually go there, right? I think the second thing which is really important to understand is whatever you're doing, right? You could be a AI startup like InVideo, for example, who works with us, who've got a phenomenal video product. And what they're doing is they're using us to power the voices, right? So maybe that's one vector. You could be a Misho who is powering customer support using our voice technology. You could be, for example, Apna, who's using us, for example, in recruiting use cases. You could be a No Broker or Convozen, who's sort of interfacing with a customer across their businesses and so forth, so on, right? So, there are many use cases. But whatever it is, the common thing is you need realism, you need language, you need accent, and you need voice. And these two are so difficult. You find options which might do one or two of these things well. But to bring in infinite voices and to bring in accents and attach that stably at scale to the first two, that is hard. That is hard. And so if you look at this today, you will actually see a huge voice collections with thousands of voices where actually you or I can go put up our voice in a fully licensed and protected manner and put this out in the marketplace for anyone else to use, right? Fully protected, also with a revenue model. So we have crossed now paying around $5 million to voice providers and voice artists who are collaborating with ElevenLabs. We just passed this a couple of months back, right? And
Aren't you like the Spotify of voice that way?
There you go. Because, if you think about doing this at scale, you've got to do this in the right way. You've got to create a platform with incentives and values for all the parties, right? Yeah. And that's what we have done. So you'll see collections like Best for Hindi. And when you sort of go into this product, you can choose your language, you can choose your accent, you can choose a style, you can choose a quality, a gender, an age, and so forth, so on, and find your ideal voice. You find your ideal voice. And so, Nivedan, maybe for you, if you're using us, you'd want to maybe, for example, if you look here, maybe you'll say, I want to clone my own voice, right? Because, hey, that's how you're going to do voiceovers on your next video. But maybe there is another digital creator out there who's actually creating some fantasy content. And maybe over there, what they want to do is they want to actually create content of a mythical creature like an ogre. So you can actually go in and synthesize through AI prompts bespoke voices. Or maybe you're a brand and you have a brand ambassador, right? Some public figure like Burt Reynolds over here. You want to work with their voice. Or you want to find a very specific accented voice because that works for that dialect of that part of Tamil Nadu, right? So I think this is the other thing that I would sort of show you in terms of what we do fundamentally from a capability standpoint, right?
Yep.
The next thing that I'd like to actually show you is we actually launched something very interesting today. Okay, so I'm going to share another tab. So, we are an audio AI research lab, right? We're an audio AI research lab. Now, what does that mean? We do voice, we do speech to text, we have a sound effects model, so people use us to generate all kinds of sound effects that they can put into their content, right? We also have proprietary models that we use in the AI agents, which we will get to. But today morning, early IST, we launched what we think is the best music AI model in the world. Prompt, generate music. And more interestingly, if you're a commercial partner of ours, if we work with you as a customer, it's fully cleared and licensed to use commercially, right? So we are launching AI music in cooperation with the music industry in a way that every party gets value, the end user and the customer. So there's no shackles to your creativity or need. Obviously, the music labels and therefore downstream the artists, right? That's how we build this. So Nivedan, since we were meeting today, I took the liberty of just creating a quick jingle for you. I don't know what your tastes look like, but I think a jingle should typically sound funky. That's sort of my bent. Yeah. So I'm going to play this for you. Let's see if you like this, right? It's a short, quick jingle.
Rathi leading AI tomorrow. Brain power bright, every challenge you borrow. From data to dreams, you light up the way. Funky futures here, let's celebrate today. Oh yeah. Rathi making AI shine. Trailblazer moves on your path, we align. Innovation
There you go. Right. So I'd encourage you to go and play around with this model today. You never know. I think we're seeing a lot of uptake, right? Obviously content creators, ad jingles, AI creation platforms who sort of need this. Even possible applications to music and musicians themselves, right? So a lot of really interesting applications. But yeah, this is the other thing we launched today, and we're really proud of this.
No, this is wonderful. I would love to play around with this. I've used some of the existing ones out there, and I would love to also kind of probably compare them side by side, and maybe I'll put out a reel comparing them with the exact same prompt and whatnot. So I'd be happy to be your early tester.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is, I think, sort of the main course, which is AI agents, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this agent that I put together, and then we're actually going to go through and see how one can actually build an AI agent, right? Which I think would be pretty interesting for a lot of the listeners of this, this podcast. So this is an agent that I put together, and it's a personal agent to solve a particular personal problem of mine. Okay, so let me kick this off, and I'm going to start a conversation with this agent.
Hello. It is your friendly AI comms companion. What is coming up this week, and how can I help?
Hey, I am actually quite stressed today. I have a podcast with Nivedan Rathi, and I need to know how to put on my best foot. I need your advice. What should I do?
Oh no, stressed before a podcast? Totally understandable. But don't you worry. You've got this. Nivedan Rathi is a great platform, and you're going to shine. My best advice would be to really know your key messages inside and out, and think about what unique insights you can
You're
bring,
actually right. I think key messages are the point, right? What are maybe 3 key messages that I should keep in mind for this podcast?
You're absolutely right. Key messages are super important for making a lasting impression for your podcast with Nivedan Rathi. Here are 3 key messages that I think will really resonate and showcase the power of ElevenLabs in the Indian market. First, highlight how ElevenLabs is democratizing voice technology in India, making high-quality, natural-sounding AI voices accessible to everyone, from small content creators to large businesses across diverse Indian languages. This empowers more people to share their stories and reach wider audiences.
Hey, actually, you know what? I really like that. Can you maybe do a 3-line rap on that, on just that point?
All right, a rap. I love it. Let's get this beat going. Yo, ElevenLabs in India, breaking down every wall. Voice tech for the masses, standing proud and tall. From creators to big biz, voices for one and all.
There we go.
Super cool. And this, when you say this agent has been crafted, it's essentially got an LLM behind it to
100%. 100%. So let me show you what goes in under the hood, right?
Yeah, I would love to see the workflow behind it, and how can I, beyond this simple one prompt agent, how do you make a more complex workflow? I can see there's a tab for workflow. I would love to know what does a workflow mean for you guys today, and it's in alpha, it seems.
Absolutely. You can see my screen here, right? So yeah. The way you use our platform to build out AI agents are, I think the very first thing is you come in and you choose your languages, right? Multiple languages. And what we let you do is we let you configure an agent, obviously in multiple languages, but also detect the user's language and speak and switch to that language as needed. The next thing is, after you sort of set up your opening messages, I think the most important part, which is really the system prompt. Now, if you sort of abstract this out, let's say you are in a typical call center and you're working with an agent. They typically have a script, they have an SOP, they have a flow, they have case-by-case instructions of do this, do that, or the other. And this is really no different, right? But you're adding in 2 to 3 things over here. So the first thing is, you are going in and you're sculpting the personality and the tone, and you're giving it crisp instructions in terms of how you want it to actually behave and engage with the audience. But after that, you're actually setting up the goals. What do you want it to do? What do you want it to ask? What should happen if this happens or that or the other? You're putting in your guardrails. And then we come to the most interesting part, right? How do we make this actionable? And in that, we give it access to tools. So I'm going to get to more on that later, right? So let's get to tools. Now, obviously, if you're doing this at scale and you have 1 million, 5 million, 10 million users, you want it to be personalized. So you want to do two things over here. The first thing is you want to pass dynamic information such as who's this caller, maybe what was their last call, what is their order, so forth, so on. So you can actually pass that through dynamic variables that you can set up in the prompt. But the other thing is you need to also give it access to your knowledge base, information. And what we do is we support that through either, let's say, static sources such as text documents, URLs, or even RAG, so that live information and context can be passed to the LLM. Now, LLMs, you ask, you're absolutely right. So if you're putting together a voice agent, you have essentially, what you're doing is you have the ears, which is speech to text. You have the brain, which is the LLM. Then you have the mouth, which is the text to speech. But then you have the orchestration, which are the models and the product that are putting all of this together and keeping the conversation real. And here we give you access to all of the popular and standard sort of big models from your big AI labs and large tech companies, as well as the ability to add your own custom LLM. So that way you sort of get access to the LLM experience and thinking of your choice, right? So we're pretty agnostic in that sense. Now, once you do that and you've sort of configured all of, let's say, the behavior, you've passed it the information and the knowledge, you've set up the various tools, you can then also sculpt a larger chart of behavior. So for example, if X and Y happen, which you put in the system prompt, hey, I want to transfer to another AI agent. I want to create a multi-agent workflow. I want an expert agent on this part. So for example, let us say you have a finance company and someone calls in and you say, hey, how can I help you? He says, I want to talk about an insurance policy. You can immediately hand off to an expert insurance agent, literally.
A human agent or an AI agent?
An AI agent, right? Who can go super deep into that. Or you can also hand off to a human on some bounds where, you as a company, when you start off with this, you might say, I want to do these 5% use cases, but anything else I want to hand off to a human. Fantastic. You can do that, right? So these tools are naturally sort of supported. So a lot of this is just sort of you building and easily integrating through the framework that we have provided. We provide MCP servers. So, we provide connections to MCP servers so that now using what's becoming sort of a common protocol of connections, right? You can also integrate your agents into other pieces of technology and SaaS and other providers that you are working with. All of this obviously comes bundled with the voice ecosystem and the capabilities that we showed you, right? So you can come in and pick your voice. You can have multiple voices for various personas. So if you do like a handoff, you can have the insurance agent speak in a different accent and voice. You can configure voices per language. And then you can do a lot of things to sort of configure the actual experience, right? The speed, the emotiveness, and so forth, so on. The thing which we now have in alpha is a lot of this journey you can now actually visually sculpt. So option one is to sort of push that through the prompt. But then after that, you can actually sort of start setting up journeys based on stages and sort of map that out over here. This is something that we hope to push out into beta and then general release fairly soon. Now, we talked about intelligence earlier, right? So some of our customers like a Cast24, they're working with us to gather intelligence at scale. And so, none of this works if you can't record and capture and have useful information that's actionable. And we allow for that. So you can actually go in here, you can put in specific goals, and we will use LLM-based evaluation to figure out if those goals were met. We can actually go in after that, pass the transcripts which we pass to you, and then collect some information, pass that to you, so that right after your call, for all of your calls at scale, you can sort of have real, accurate information with insights that are actionable. And I think last, but definitely not least, this is completely customizable in terms of the experience. So, we give you sort of some stock experiences, but you could go in, you could put in your brand logo or a brand image. You can configure the size of this, and then it's as easy as copy pasting a piece of code onto your owned and operated property, or else, connecting this into your telephone systems through standard methods such as SIP trunking, right? And that's what we allow for here.
Wonderful. I am thoroughly impressed. Some of these things were new to me. I think I've been so focused on the text to speech, speech to text, and then finally voice cloning. These are the 3 use cases that I've used ElevenLabs a lot for. And I am quite delighted to actually see that we've moved further than that towards agents and workflows. And particularly, I think I love the part where you get to craft these workflows in terms of handing off to another agent or another human. I think
Yes.
that to me stands out a lot. I want to know what is like where is this in production at this moment?
So, I think sometime late last month, we reached about 900,000 AI agents deployed. So anytime in the next couple of months, I expect that we would probably be at 1 million agents deployed globally, not only in India, but 1 million agents deployed of ElevenLabs conversational AI. So this is very much a product at scale. It's sort of, if you look at our evolution as, first sort of a text to speech, then let's say cloning, then as media workflows, then as dubbing, then as sort of infrastructure for AI companies, right? Then voice infrastructure for text to speech, for AI agents. This is really that next evolution with a company that's that's reinventing itself every 3 to 5 months, and it's unbelievable growth. 1 million agents. There you have it.
Wow. So at this point, what I'm thinking is let me try and dig this a bit. All right. So there are 2 kinds of challenges, the larger ones at least, that I see that you will have to overcome, or you're in the process already of overcoming it.
Sure.
One is the absolute latency, technical aspect of latency. And that I speak to you, you speak to me, even in this call right now, if there was to be a lag because of poor internet issues, let's say, right?
Yes.
That something goes off on my side or your side, then that lag, that latency makes the conversation like impossible,
Yes.
practically unusable.
Yes.
So you can't scale something with poor latency. So I want to know about this one. And then the second thing I want to know about is when you talk about a more complex workflow, when you talk about handoffs between agents, even within one agent, you have 17 use cases, right? And and you have knowledge bases. It's like the SOPs that have been crafted for a BPO or other customer support company or team that's supposed to take care of that SOP and workflow
Yes.
and follow that with a certain intelligence, right? They're trained for it and they follow it and they're trained to escalate it when
Yes.
they can't handle it. So help me understand how's it looking on the latency side? Because the demo that we just saw isn't ideal right now for a real customer. So maybe you can expand more on that, right? So that latency part, and the other is how does the complex workflow happen, especially given that you're dependent on the ability and the intelligence of LLMs to make sense of everything and decide what happens in the flow.
Got it. Okay. See, what I would say is, you're right? Like, I think the biggest part of this is, for this to work is, hey, it's realism, hey, it's intelligence, but it's also latency, right? And what you will find is in production, you're typically sort of seeing response ranges that are, depending on what you use, right? Like, hey, if you're using sort of just core, say, text to speech services, right? Hey, these could be sort of 300, 400, 500 milliseconds. If you're using sort of the end-to-end platform, hey, maybe this is 500 milliseconds, 800 milliseconds, sometimes at the outer edge a second, right? Now, that's what you experience today. Now, what happens is in the production world, what you're sort of finding is, let's see sweet spot, hey, that might be sort of sub 700-800 seconds, where actually what you are seeing is the customer is sort of solving their problems and then walking away with some happy outcome. Now, in all of our engagements, sort of in the conversational AI use case, whatever our engagement is, we are seeing the following metrics. Like, we are being reported by our customers that, hey, CSAT has gone up by 20-30%, number one, right? They're saying that containment rates, right, with high accuracy, hey, these are actually at 90% plus levels.
What is the containment rate?
So when someone sort of comes into one mode of engaging with you, right? Let's say I'm on a chatbot or I'm on a voice call. How often do I resolve their issue within that, right? Right? Before they say, no, I want to go this, no, I want to escalate, no, I want to go to human agent, no, I'm not solved, I want to send an email, right? You want to solve it there and there, right? So it's really important in this space.
So let's understand this. You're saying the North Star for you is what are the customer outcomes, especially in this, right?
There are
Now,
three things which really matter here, right? A, did they get the job done and did they report a high degree of satisfaction? Two,
yeah,
can you sort of solve it then and there? That's number two. And then third, was the prescription the right prescription, right? So is your accuracy right? We've seen cases 6 7 months ago where agents have made up policies and caused issues, right? So I think these are sort of the three vectors. And today at 20, 30, 40% of live production volumes for enterprise companies, you are seeing 90% plus metrics on some of these. You're seeing 27 to 30% CSAT and metrics being moving. You're seeing productivity growing 3 to 4x. And those are outcomes in the wild. It cannot scale if there wasn't customer satisfaction.
interesting. So you said the three pillars are these, right? One is the realism. The second is reasoning and intelligence. And the third is latency, right? I believe these are the three specs or the metrics that you want to optimize for internally, so that you can optimize for customer outcomes. And in this context, I think we are more specific to customer support
As an example, yes.
as an example, right? Where you're saying the CSAT, the satisfaction scores, do they go up? Is the resolution found? And is that the right resolution? I mean, is the resolution being closed and contained in one conversation or in one, whatever setup flow? And then the third, you said, is it the right resolution? Right?
100%. And you can take the CSAT out and look at use case, right? So, for example, you're a hyper-local platform. You're hiring tens of thousands of people every month, right? Mm-hmm. Did your lead screening go well? Did they sort of accept, right? Did they come in? Did your KYC happen? There's a set of things. Or you're in finance, you're doing lead gen. So then you're chasing a number, right? And to get to that number, you have to think about it, right? Someone cold calls you, in one sentence, you've typically killed the call, right? What is sort of your 2-sentence engagement rate? What is the time to sort of get to fruition, right? Like people are reporting, let's say, a 50% gain in the amount of session time to reach that resolution, right? That's unbelievable efficiency. So I'm saying there's a lot of sophistication around this. And then, CSAT is, say, customer support. And I think based on use case, you can think about these metrics, but these largely sort of become the buckets.
Got it. So can we take one specific example of a company that is deployed, since you've got about 75% of the Fortune 500 companies who are currently deploying this in some form or the other, right? And you said we have 900,000, almost 1 million agents, which are going to be there by the end of this month. So building agents is one, as you said, in production. What is the volume of calls? I would like to break this down. Let's say customer support once, and then maybe I would like to pick up sales as the second one, sales and pre-sales that we have, right? So within customer support, what is the volume of cases that are being handled by ElevenLabs agents and voice models today?
Sure. Okay. So when you look at customer support, right, what I would say there is, so for example, in India, our flagship customer there is Meesho, right?
I'm ex-Meesho, so
okay, fantastic.
The importance of multilingual and everything, right? So I've been in the early days, so yeah.
There you go, right? So while I cannot share their exact data on their implementation, right, what I can tell you that, hey, it is at scale. And two, they are, if you actually look in the public domain, their CTO has actually talked about how their overall AI initiatives and their voice bots have actually led to material improvements in terms of their outcome metrics, right? So they're doing this at Meesho scale. They are doing this at significant representation of all of their volumes. And they're doing this only because they have productivity gains, satisfaction, and outcome gains, right? So, that's one example that I would give you there.
Would you be able to share what part of the workflow they're doing it in? Because that's not proprietary, I presume that. So what part of the entire workflow? So let's take this example, right? I've been in Meesho, I was leading the business vertical, one of the business verticals first, and then the entire category marketing. And I remember taking up so many calls by myself. We would whenever we would get stuck in a business problem and be like, I don't know why this is happening. Why is the sales down today? Why is this category down today? Or why have returns for this particular SKU gone up significantly when everything in numbers looks good?
Yeah.
That's when we would move into, let's call the customer, right?
Got it.
Let's call our users. And this was a company-wide culture. It's very hardcore culture. So one is the customer support side. And right now I'm kind of digressing a little bit from my side here, where I can imagine if I were to and I would make 20 calls a day, right? As a, someone who's leading a big department, 20 calls a day means my entire day is going to that. It's a very high value activity.
Yeah.
So would you be able to claim that if I were to do that, not by my own as a human, but if I were to deploy an agent, which has my voice, maybe has enough realism, would you claim that we would be able to have a natural free flowing conversation as long as I prompt engineered my way into it?
So I think the answer is yes, with some caveats, right?
Okay. Let's understand caveats, yes.
Yeah, the yes is with some caveats, right? So let's say you break this into two parts, okay?
Mhm.
Any company, and you think of it as inbound calls and then outbound calls, right? Inbound is the customer, it has a pull, they have some need, and then they come to you, and then they're coming to you with some point of pain. And that's where, historically, you're sort of sitting on a while back an IVR tree and you're waiting for 7 minutes, pressing numbers till you can get to somebody and solve your issue, right?
Perfect.
Now, what's your resolution there? Whatever your issue is, like even something as simple as, hey, where is my order? Or I want to refund this, or I want to change this. There are these 15 common questions that are 70-80% of your volume, right?
It's called, let's say these are the FAQs, simplistic FAQs of customer support. Those, I believe, the IVR world is so dead around that.
Yes,
You guys
exactly.
take it up completely. I get
Exactly. That's what, right? Then you start moving to slightly more complex stuff.
Yeah.
I want to change the sizes. And I think that's where now a lot of that work is happening. And then eventually you go to edge cases, right? But what happens here is you have the customer. So it's not about necessarily scaling the volume. It's about scaling the use case and making sure that they get satisfied. Then the second one to what you came for is the outbound word, right? Where you're interrupting somebody in that day.
Yes.
Right?
Good framework.
Use case, right? Maybe it's a recruitment use case. Maybe it's what you said where you want to talk to your customer, but you don't know that if he wants to talk to you, right? Maybe you're trying to sell a credit card. Maybe you're trying to scale your business, so forth, so on, right? So if you look at this today, what we are sort of getting from our customer is one customer. So, customers like 99 acres, funding societies, so forth, so on. What they're telling us that, hey, they are able to operate at the scale of, thousands of calls a day today, right? So I'm able to make thousands of calls a day. So let's say, Nivedan, when you worked at Meesho, maybe you have 1 million customers you want to talk to, and you're talking to 20 a day. Perhaps now you can scale to 100,000, 10,000 a day, right? That's number one. Okay. Number two is whoever calls, right? Even if you or I call, there's going to be some organic pickup and disconnect rate, right? You can't beat that.
Yeah.
Right? You can't beat that. But what you can do is you sort of see, let's say, your best of breed human agent, and then you sort of see your worst robocall. You pick it up and you hear the word hello, you immediately disconnect.
Yeah.
What you can do is you can come closer to this side immediately. Not just you come closer to this side, you can now scale it up. So you can start seeing folks attempting to now say, can I 2x, 3x, 4x this? Because I was capacity limited. And that's what they're doing over here. So it still works under the natural rates of, hey, will I pick this up? If I figure out that the moment it's, it's some kind of push call, do I want to entertain it? But at the moment that customer is receptive, if you sort of look at it, the sort of second sentences, the third second sentences complete, they are remarkable compared to what used to happen before, which means that you can productively scale this.
Okay, so let me get this right. You're saying, so there are two kinds of metrics I'm looking at for an outbound calls. You made perfect sense. Inbound, we've got the simpler use cases. I'm all on board that, right?
Yeah.
It's immediate sense when we got calls. Where's my order? Abhi tak nahi aaya. Like, told me it was 3 days, but it's been 4, right? And then I'd ask for refund. Where is my money?
Yep.
Right? Or do you have this SKU with you right now?
Yeah.
And for me to deploy a human for this doesn't make any sense whatsoever now, for the simplistic ones. But in the escalation metrics or the complexity of the query, right? It could be that I had called you 3 times before.
Sure.
You told me this last time. Now this is happening, and I've been still waiting. Blah 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 blah. Solve this problem for me. Now it comes under the case of a complex problem statement to solve. Is it fair to say that this is a tricky one to get right today?
See, without
without
remarking
humans.
without remarking on the specifics of this particular case, again, nobody has got this at 100% today. Nobody's going to get this at 100% tomorrow.
So I think
Right.
it's about 100% because once it's gone to a certain complexity, I'm right now evaluating. One is the limited capacity concern of having only humans,
Yep.
and the other is my customer support satisfaction scores falling down if I automate it.
But it's not.
Trade-off.
I think that's the interesting part.
So you're saying complex workflows, the CSAT goes up?
What I'm saying is, you sort of start with the volume, right? You start, and a lot of the volume for most companies, let's be clear, is the easy stuff.
Yeah.
Most volume is the easy stuff.
Simple and high volume, done.
Correct. So I think that's where we are in this journey today. Let's be clear. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm
We are
trying to say.
that part of the journey today where, and depending on company, that could be between 10 to let's say 40% of your volumes, right? That's where we are in this journey for a capability which you could not have, say, 9 months back, right? So everyone is doing a POC in this, they're starting with this, and they're chasing that volume. Then folks have sort of come to the threshold now, and that's where some of the things we spoke about earlier, right? That systems design, the prompt designing, reimagining those workflows and rescripting that into your sort of prompting, etc. That is what is now happening, right? And now we're sort of at the frontier where people are now saying, okay, can I get from this 30 to 35? Can I get from 35 to 40? Right? So these are all problems to be solved, which, maybe 6 months from now, maybe from 30-40%, maybe the ceiling is 60 to 70%.
Fair enough.
Right? But the other thing which is happening is, hey, for a lot of the human support agents, which you will have, of course you will have, right? It's these working side by side. The human agents are now deployed at your more complex problems.
Yeah.
Which is what makes sense, right? So you're almost creating two sort of work fleets in that sense. And that's how we're seeing it play out for today.
No, perfect. I think that answers my question. I think given the phase of evolution of AI in general, I think there is a certain dependency that you would have on the evolution of LLMs themselves.
For sure.
At this moment, the LLMs form the backbone of the reasoning part.
Yeah, they
I mean, the reasoning as well as latency in some ways. The LLMs seem to be like, working in tandem with you, but they could sometimes be the limiting factor here at times. So while they are improving on one hand and you're improving on the realism and the accuracy of the accent and whatnot and multilingual support, I think these two pillars come together to probably give a much high quality customer experience, right? So,
Yes.
so I'm going to conclude it this way that this part of conversation that if there's a business decision to be made around this, a leader has to make a decision that, okay, I've heard voice AI is cool. What is it I can attack today, right? What part of my problem statements in my customer interactions can I attack today? And it seems like all these FAQs, the frequently asked questions, frequently asked support requests and issues that have to be resolved, look at them, pick up the simpler ones today, get them done, over. That I see can happen immediately, right?
Yeah.
And then start deploying POCs for the next layer.
Yeah. See, I
Hand off to the human agent here. Yeah.
Yes. See, I'd break it down like this, right? Like, it depends on where you're in your journey. So, on day one, you maybe don't climb Mount Everest, right? But maybe on day 120, you do. So day one, pick up your easy use case. So if it's support, if it's inbound, pick up your easy use cases, which are X volume, which are predictable. Do a POC there.
Yeah.
Right? Get to scale. And that's what you do, right? The second, there is a lot of outbound equivalent of that, right? Which is sort of number two.
Yeah.
So, lead gen, training, hiring, recruitment, KYC, etc. These are solved problems. These work. Go for that. That's true. And those are also very structured. Hey, I need something this one from you. Would you be interested in X? Can you give me 1, 2, 3, 4? Thank you. Can I confirm this? Bye. Go. It's a huge part of every company's workflow if, that's the sort of business model they have. That's two. The third part, internal productivity, sales team coaching, field team enablement, simulations for your call center agents. And there is so much around this that also happens for those upper layers.
Yeah.
Those are probably the three starting points, I would say.
Yeah, I think so it's instead of for the complex parts, I see that instead of addressing and solving problems for a customer, which will take a little bit of work, I would see, if I were to recommend, I'm thinking of it inside my head. I'm thinking if I were to recommend a leader, a CEO, that hey, these are the places where you do this, and you've listed out some. I think for me, the top one would be this: customer support. If it's inbound, if it's simple, and you want to address it at scale, go ahead today,
There
right?
you go.
And in this matrix, if you the more you move towards outbound, the more you move towards complexity and long context memory and stuff, and the more you have dependency on the your knowledge base and LLM's reasoning capability, like abilities, that which is in a way like the complexity itself. The more you'll need to work towards it.
Phase
Right?
two. Exactly. That's what
Exactly.
phase. Step
That's
two.
phase two. And when it comes to deriving insights at scale by listening to two humans talk, whether it be within your team or ideally your team's interactions with the customer, deriving rich insights from that via LLM's reasonings, and then supported by your speech to text conversion and so on. I think that is where a lot of gold mine lies.
100%.
That's the place where I would immediately go ahead. I'm literally doing a project right now where I'm going to screen 50,000 plus people for applying to our founder cohort. Like it's a venture building studio that we're setting up, and I'm right now leading this part. I'm focused on this part of AI screening process. So we're going to have 50,000 people. That's our estimate of number of applicants who will be obviously filling up a form. But then the next round is an interview,
Got it.
which is like a AI driven video interview, and voice is obviously going to be critical in it. So we're going to derive a lot of insights from the speech to text and then text to reasoning of how we want to evaluate those answers. And to set this up, I think now after today's demo, because I didn't know there was a new feature that you've launched, I'm very excited for the testing out the workflows part that is there, and see how I can apply my evaluation metrics, score people, get them ranked and into the program that we have for 3 months.
Sounds
So
great.
so I see I'm looking at it as a more personal application, and I have this project that I've got. So I'm personally very excited, and I would like to also derive a lot of valuable insights from those interviews. Not just that, but we're going to have human panel as well. Final round is there's going to be a bunch of humans who are the decision makers interacting with these people. And for my next cohort, this becomes like the base for intelligence, right? That these people got in, they did well. So let me backtrack what went right in that interview for them and use that for updating my evaluation metrics. I'm just thinking there are such interesting use cases that are coming up, and this is similar to recruiting, hiring, right? What I just spoke about. So I see that this has a lot of value there. But as soon as I go outbound and more complex, I think I see this is the dimension of two by two that I imagine. I think that's
The only thing I would say is even in outbound, there is a lot of that equivalent. So what I would say is outbound, a lot of the rate limiters are not necessarily for that category. AI centric, right? Like they're just, hey, I don't want to get a call, right? But the more you break to that, there's a lot of that there too. And there too, I think you can sort of chip away at some of those easy structured processes. But then if you start getting into deeper, more consultative, processes and selling and so on, okay, that's your phase two there.
So is it fair to say that today it's good for capturing a little bit of interest by or in some form pre-sales, where you kind of generate leads by somehow creatively breaking through that initial few seconds of
100%.
as it's creatively break through that and get the next minute of conversation in. We're
100%.
talking about a very serious customer, and at scale, even if the conversion in percentage drops down, at scale you multiply the net volumes.
And it's so it's pre-sales, and it's also the post-sale, right? So it's pre-sale. It may be some part of, so we're talking about the lowest hanging fruit, right? Lowest hanging fruit is obviously the pre-sale part, as you said.
Yeah.
Some point of maturity, you can even start getting into the sale component, okay? But the post-sale, right? So for example, hey, I have this customer, or I have received objective, and now I have this whole process which I have to finish after. So simple thing, right? I've sold a financial product. Now I need to get these 5-6 fields of information and KYC from you. And someone is sitting and calling you and finding out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is completely structured.
Yeah.
You can do this.
Wonderful. No, I see. This is in a way extension to the customer support thing in the form of customer relationship management, account management. I see that this is very and for those relatively standard conversations that you want to have with them. So it seems that is the case. Perfect.
Yes.
Now, and I'm going to, I assume, do we have any more demos or anything that you want to share?
No, I think I have shown you what I wanted to showcase.
Perfect. Perfect. So, tell me now where, if I'm making a decision on where to deploy, we spoke about where to deploy.
Yeah.
I want to talk about two places now. If I were to immediately start implementing this tomorrow, I've got your 11 Labs subscription, right?
Yeah.
What else do I need so that I can deploy it tomorrow in our customer support, let's say?
You.
What processes? What do I need to be prepared with?
The first thing I would say is you probably want an AI engineer, right? I think
Define what does an AI engineer mean for you, by the way?
yeah. So I think when you sort of look at it, right, like most of the companies who are actually succeeding in this space, right, who are sort of in the frontier pushing the boundaries, they've done a couple of very interesting things when we look at our customers, right? The first, they have organizationally within the tech organization, they sort of set up two mandates. Okay. The first mandate is they have set up a sort of an AI super team, right? So there is an AI team with a head of AI really attached to the CTO. Okay. And, this is sort of like like a SWAT team for the CTO. And you could have 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 folks sort of embedded in that. And some more mature orgs, you have a chief data and AI officer with a fairly structured case. But with a lot of fast moving, especially consumer tech, we are seeing this. And a lot of the folks that they're actually bringing into this, it's quite surprising. You'll actually see a lot of engineers who are maybe less than 5 years into their career being a part of this team. And their goal is to be super AI fluent, okay? Be extremely hands-on with all AI technologies, okay? 3, to take the business problems that the business and the CTO define and say, hey, go figure out a solution for this, okay? And so it's that person who's 1.5, 2, 3, 4 years into the career who's probably taking some of the most exciting work and projects within the organization and saying, here's a recommendation that has, X million dollars of benefit and putting that back to the CTO, right? So one, they're creating that, right? You're an engineer. Your job is to make AI work. You will work with AI. You will take all of our existing processes, products, tools, and you will sort of figure out how to map this so that is their job. And then they are partnered with the business teams or the specific product areas or the product teams, right? So that's number one. But the second thing is they have gone and set mandates across all of the other teams. So which is to say, hey, you're going to generate so much code using AI. Hey, you're going to go in and you're going to have at least X projects which reach Y sort of scale or outcomes. So they are going and setting mandates within those teams so that A, the owner of that specific area is incentivized to land something, but B, he has sort of an expert who has gone really deep into this to help him take that to life. And then they're putting that together. And these folks are always attached to some CXO. I have a fintech customer, large fintech customer, who's going through a POC where this profile is actually attached to the CMO, not even the CTO, because they're trying to automate certain marketing workflows.
What do you call this profile again?
I would literally call it an AI engineer. They're engineers, but they're typically part of the AI team.
When I hear AI engineer, what I imagine is this someone who's kind of full stack, first of all, but understands how the world of AI, new models and foundational models and certain tools and frameworks work. But then it seems to me the rest of it, the business part of it, seems like an AI product manager kind of a role to translate business requirements to tech, design the UX around it, test out the use cases. So is it fair to say it's a pod of AI engineer and a product manager?
We aren't in a lot of these companies necessarily seeing AI product managers. Not yet, at least. No, not yet.
Who's doing the prompt engineering?
It's the engineer. So it is the engineer. So this is an engineer 2, 3, 4 years from an engineering background who's been told, okay, this is the problem statement. How do we make this happen? How do we deploy this, right? But this is about launching, and they would then work with, let's say, a product engineer and an engineering manager attached to a particular product, right, in a company. So I think in terms of how do we sort of package this and make this valuable to the consumer, hey, the product owner is doing that. How do you sort of, how do I sort of like integrate this into my, my entire architecture stack? There is some companionship from the engineering manager, but hey, how do I AI-fy this? How do I get this done? That's the engineer.
Interesting. And the engineer is directly working with the business
CTO, CDO.
Who's talking to the business guy?
It's this guy. So
The
it's
ends here.
right. So he's sort of he's sort of project manager. He's pseudo project product manager.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at. That I mean, in the previous world of building SaaS and software companies, the product managers found themselves in a role of kind of owning the multiple pieces, and it seems like if if the engineer will have to develop as a product thinking person,
Yes.
then it seems to me makes more sense, because there is a part of iterating and testing and doing this and that, which is there. But if you've seen that, I'm also surprised, because I would love to kind of get my hands on how do I orchestrate this part in my next project.
Yeah.
So that
And
that is
it really depends on the type of company, right? So, for example, for example, let's say you take like a lot of consumer tech companies, right? Whether you're in media content, entertainment, finance, commerce, and so forth, so on.
Yeah.
Uh, for a lot of them, this is sort of the structure that they're finding working, right? Even hyper local delivery, that's what they're seeing working. That's one. You go to, let's say, more mature orgs, they might have a chief data officer who has basically a structure.
Sure.
Within that, they have analysts and so forth, so on. But then now they've also started creating roles again, AI something, AI for something, or AI that. Or within that, they might start to hire, let's say, an AI product manager, but embedded within this sort of large engineering org, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you take SaaS businesses where they're building natively SaaS offerings. Okay, that maybe the product manager wears that hat and says, this is what we need to do, then works with engineers, right? But that's a different beast altogether, right? So I think it really flows from that. But a lot of the early adopters, this is the structure that they're finding work. Right?
So we've spoken about the people who are going to be critical in this. What tools do I need to have apart from ElevenLabs that pair up well to complement what your offerings are?
Sure. So I think at the heart of it, right, I think this is sort of the process, right? The first thing is, have your pecking order of what you want to solve for. And that is so critical, right? Like, what are the top 5 things that you want to sort of solve for, and then have a priority set, right? But that itself is going to map into what follows next. And that itself is a challenge in a lot of orgs.
I understand.
The second thing is, I think, then having your data infrastructure in place. Because, if you really look at this, you have an intelligence layer on top, which is your LLM, but you need to have your data infrastructure, and you need to sort of have your systems and functions infrastructure sort of plugging into this, right? So can you sort of get this into place? I think that is really important, as well as then, let's say, having your systems infrastructure being able to plug into this.
What about having like a full-on, the way you're saying data infrastructure, there should be the new thing of context infrastructure, retaining long-term context across projects. So one is having a documentation in place. The other is having context in place. Do you think that plays a key role for the kinds of applications we're talking about?
See, as you get into more sophisticated use cases, for sure it will, right? Because what you're trying to do is then to sort of have memory
Yes.
across sessions, cohorts, etc. Right? So I think, and that's what it will get to. That's what it will get to. At the rudiments is at least being able to pipe in, the right sets of data, and that's sort of your step one. Then the step two is to sort of then have that context and intelligence, then learning that cascades, and how do you sort of do that? Which is also why you see this attached a lot to data orgs, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's that other part. The next part is really, I think, coming in and having your broader intelligence level sort of figured out, right? So what are the LLMs you want to work with? How do you want to implement them, right? Have you sort of, are you fine-tuning them for A, B, C, D? Like, what are all of those things, right? I think that's another necessary piece, right? So if you sort of have all of these things sort of there, then you're in a place to make the final leap, which is then the customer interface. So this is probably the step.
So, no, I get this. What you're talking about is a larger org-wide thinking and strategy and road mapping around what's important, what do we tackle first, and where do we begin sorting our data and all of the tech aspects of it. If I were to do a POC within the next 2 days, POC, right? Which means I don't have to worry about a lot of extensive integration yet. I don't have to worry about certain risks and compliances that I have to especially account for. I'm not going to get there, right? In the next 2 days, if I were to do a hackathon.
Yes.
And I want to deploy this customer support agent, I've got my SOPs documented in a PDF. I've got a 20-pager PDF which captures the use cases. I'm a D2C brand, right?
Oh.
And I know that these are my FAQs. I know these are my SKUs. And I know for each SKU, what are the kinds of Q&As I need to be prepared with. from the educational standpoint as well as support and delivery and logistics standpoint.
Sure.
I've gotten that in order.
Yeah.
Documentation is ready. I've got my prompts in order.
Yeah.
Right? I want to connect
Telephony.
telephony.
You need a telephony. You need another
That's-
telephony system. You plug it in.
Telephony. There is no third guy acting anywhere around the
Cool. Because if we're talking about 2 days, right? Hey, you'd probably use a stock LLM. If you sort of roughly know your prompts, the other thing that you need is time. But if you already figured that out with prompts, hey, that's ready too. Okay. You already have like a 20-page SOP, etc. done. You upload that, right?
Done.
And then you go. That's it.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. Yeah, because I wanted to know if we're coming out like out of the box, everything's in the box.
That's it. You can do that. That's good.
Perfect. And I especially am more excited about the two things that you showed me. One was the evaluation assessment, something, right? And the other was data collection.
Data collection, exactly.
Right? These features, I think, make a huge difference in making it out of the box.
Yes. Yes.
So, which means I should be able to measure my success rate. I should be able to capture certain key data and variables during the call and get it collected in a very nice, neat manner. You're
Yes.
like a voice form for me now.
And even quality, even some more stuff, right? Like even the first level interpretation. Was this successful? Was this not? Did this happen? Were they happy? Like you can have all of those criteria where it's not just a set of fields, but it's information that comes after. You can actually know that. Experts, why, what, etc. Absolutely.
Oh, that's perfect. I think we spent a little bit extra time for making sense of this, but the idea was that if I'm going to kind of I'm coming from the angle of helping someone understand this better, but also move towards decision making, right? That's where I'm coming from. I can imagine 17 use cases I'm going to act on in the next 3 months.
Wow.
It's just clear as daylight to me now. So I'm personally going to be, all hands on this a lot. As you said, the AI engineer is obviously the one that I have to get, but my POCs are now in pipeline in my head already. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I think you did a wonderful job at kind of walking me through the entire process at a strategic layer as well as a tactical layer. I wanted to get you to the tactical layer as well. So that went really well. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Nivedan. Appreciate your time. And, hopefully you sort of could see all of the parts of how audio AI is acting like every layer.
Absolutely. No, I think with this, I would like to kind of, get your concluding remarks on this, right? What is next for voice AI and what is next for ElevenLabs? Obviously, within that, you're right now the market leader. I'm sure you're going to have competition, right? So, what I want to understand is in the next 1 year, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, how does this pan out at a larger scope, but also for ElevenLabs?
It's very tough to talk about 5 to 10 years for a company that's 3 years old and plans in 3-month cycles. And that's AI speed, right? Everyone thinks in 2 to 3 month cycles, right? But what I will tell you is this. I think if you think about ElevenLabs, what you should expect are the following. First, continued world-class research across all audio modalities for sure, right? I think every release pushes the boundary and you should continue to expect that. More and more inclusion, right? With every release, we're not just launching features, we're launching inclusion, more languages, more accents, more capabilities, more experiences, more sounds, right? So I think that's 2. Third, Matty, our CEO, a few weeks back, he put out a tweet where his goal is for ElevenLabs, by the end of this year to sort of pass the voice AI agent Turing test. We sort of seen that play out in the LLM world today, but now we wanted to play out in the voice AI agent. And
Which is more about realism or is it more about reasoning? Combination of that.
It's all right. And that's why it's a difficult problem, right? It's the conversation orchestration, it's the reasoning, it's the effectiveness, and it's realism.
I love this. And have you been able to define benchmarks for what does that Turing test evaluation mean?
I think it's one of those things where you will know it when you hear it.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll give you that because the Turing test is the tricky one, and it's such a intuitive judgment more than anything else. It's going to be a democratic poll at the end of the day in some ways.
So you're right? And the other part is I think you're going to see a ton of use cases coming out, which I think will also define the future of the company, right? Today, we're really at the state of the industry and the company where every day we're unlocking some new industry, vertical, team, and a use case, because it's the birth of this, right? So as you look to next year from an enterprise grade platform, you'll start seeing really deep workflows, problems and solutions going into very specific agentic workflows, right? And that's what you can expect from us, right? Great research, great workflows, inclusion, and working at AI speed.
Wonderful. I think that I am, as someone who's usually very curious and also quite skeptical in my approach, right? In general, wherever I go, I think I really appreciate that we were able to put down with certainty a lot of these ideas about the capabilities, about the method to go about it. And to me, this is more like we got out of you a little bit of a masterclass in voice AI. So my goal here is completely satisfied. So thank you so much, Siddharth, for coming up, and it's my pleasure to be able to host you here.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Siddharth. Yeah.